So, can you give us a little bit of an overview of the products that you expect to release based on this data?
So at the moment we haven't done the packaging on the products for massive data, but we have got a good understanding of what we'll be doing. And basically we're going to look at audiences and we're going to look at programs and be able to tell you what the composition of the audience is in a very detailed way with hundreds of different attributes for both persons and also hundreds of attributes for the show. So there's going to be some very interesting things that'll come out of that. Like I said, we don't really have the packaging done at the moment. We have some good ideas and we have some very basic kind of rudimentary things, but there'll be a lot more, and it's much more likely that they'll end up being a dashboard that people will just simply subscribe to.
What is the time frame for the release of a product?
It'll be in Q4. We're making very good progress. Like I say, most of the science is done. The biggest reason that we have not done any kind of releases, it really comes down to the packaging issues. We're also integrating the systems that we just recently licensed or from Microsoft for the deal we announced several months ago. So that's in process right now. As that gets finished, we'll then turn and make sure, get the dashboards up and running. We have a good sense of what we want to do, but there's a lot of work to get done to get there. And we also need to actually prove the models work as well as we say, and we want to publish some of that information for some of our clients.
Can you please give a recap of the announcement with Microsoft from a few months ago?
Sure. So Microsoft and Fourth Wall got together several months back, and the deal was that Microsoft would be receiving some data from Fourth Wall, and Fourth Wall would then take over all operations of the Microsoft set-top box data collection and processing system. So we now have all of the data clients integrated. Everything is now moving into our systems, and we're in the process now of bringing the reporting services back up and running. And by the end of the month, we'll have everything running for all of our previous clients, and we'll be converting all of our current clients from our ad name network to be able to get access to that data, their data through that same dashboard.
How do you think connected TVs might impact your business?
Well, connected TVs are really interesting, and a lot of the manufacturers of those televisions have already talked to us. They've given us a call and said, how do we play in the EBIF space? How would we work with you? Is there something we could do in terms of collection or processing? That's a lot to add to a TV manufacturer's plate, in the big picture. So, from everything I've read, most of the connected TVs are they're purchased in large numbers, but they're not really connected at this point. So, and I can tell you that mine at home, I have a very advanced house, but we don't have ours connected. So, at some point, I think you'll see more of that, and there'll be more interesting data from it. For the time being, I don't think that there's a big impact, but I think that that's going to change over time. Just because, even if it's secondary, if it's Netflix, that's still contributions, and there's still an ad platform there. So it's going to contribute. I just don't think it's going to contribute in a very large way very soon, but I do think that there's some upside and some interesting opportunities there in the future for integrating, and a lot of those conversations are already taking place.
This might be a stupid question, I don't know. So you're working with EBIF
Right.
boxes. Connected TVs will be delivering IP data.
Right.
How do you reconcile the two, or is it compatible? Can you talk a little bit about that?
Sure. So EBIF is the platform on television for cable that was selected because it worked everywhere from the low-end digital set-top boxes all the way to the high-end boxes. And it was sort of a least common denominator to get interactivity and to get enhanced advertising into these boxes. So we're in that space because we want to get to data. As that evolves into something else, or however that happens to change, we'll change with it. We'll continue to be a technology provider in that space. So over on the connected TV side, they've sort of taken a big leapfrog and gone way ahead because they have a different distribution means, and they have a different way to get data down, and they have a different type of interactivity that they can provide. The one thing that they can't do anything with, though, is if there's an EBIF trigger, they can't do anything about it. And so they've talked with us about it to say, if EBIF really takes off in any kind of meaningful way, and the fact that Comcast has got 19 million households, Time Warner has a very large footprint. I think the last I read, it's over 40 million boxes are enabled with EBIF today. So if there was enough content that had those triggers and would do something when it was received, then the set manufacturers would want to do something so that they could look at those streams and they could react to those triggers too, because they're going to want to play in that ecosystem. And so that's where they come to us and talk with us about how can you take that software, that EBIF software, that user agent, and get it to run within the IP framework that they have for the distribution of television that way. And so that's kind of how the things fit together and how we can work in that world as it evolves and how everything moves forward. And like I say, EBIF will probably evolve into something else, and we've been a contributor in the cable system and the cable community for a long time in that space, and we'll continue to do that. It's in our long-term goals to make sure that we continue to provide the platform and services necessary for that.
Talk about over the top. How does that impact your business and how are you dealing with it?
Well, over the top is not something that kind of gets back to the connected TV question. Over the top doesn't really have an impact on us today because it's kind of small at this point. But at some point in time, over the top is going to if they want to participate in the advanced advertising space with the community as it's developing today through an EBIF distribution, they'll have to integrate the user agent services there too. So there's an opportunity more than it's a concern at this point.